Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Anarchapocalypse. This is Chris Aragon. I'm your host. I'm coming to you from the east coast of Canada. And today I have with me as a special guest, Rodrigo Duarte, coming to me from Morelia, Mexico. How you doing today there, Roy?
Hey man, I'm doing pretty good. This is pretty awesome. I'm very excited and thankful for doing this with you.
How I met Roy was kind of strange because he became the kind of de facto host of my film that I'm working on, Anarchapocalypse, and we had the pleasure of visiting a town not far from where you live, just a couple hours really, called Toronto. And what's so special about Toronto is these people have had an uprising about 7 years ago,
Yeah, it was like 7 years ago, more or less. Yeah.
and they were fed up from the loggers cutting down their forests and all these things. So essentially, an uprising started with the elderly ladies and spread very quickly, and it just happened. They kicked them out. They kicked out the politicians who were working with the cartels, and the police who were basically enforcing what you know what the cartels wanted through the politicians. Through they got rid of all of it, and since then they've been crime free. And what an interesting experience. And besides just being able to go there, we had the opportunity to go with the Dollar Vigilante, Jeff Berwick, also Luke Radowski, two people who are. I'm a big fan of their work. That was in and of itself a really great experience, being able to go with people who really have an understanding of what life would be without government in the first place. We picked up Roy in Morelia as our translator on the way there. Roy, tell the people how this happened for you, because it all really happened organically.
Well, nothing was planned. Everything just happened. And well, the way I got involved, it was that Bob Stanley sent me this message on Facebook. I told him I was from this part of the country of Mexico, Michoacan. He connected me in a Facebook chat group with Jeff Berwick and Luke Radowski. He then added you, I remember, and added Jacob. And they told me they saw the documentary on Vice, I think it was, right? About this town that kicked out politicians and they got rid of criminals themselves. So he asked me if I could take them there or connect them with someone in there, and that's kind of how it happened. Just I guess just by being involved in the you know anarchist slash freedom community.
Yeah, Bob Stanley invited me there too, and I'm really glad he did. Um, and Bob Stanley has had a company, or has a company called Frios, which is basically an encrypted store in the internet. Really interesting concept for those who want to look into it. Had you ever been to Toronto before? Like you're close to Toronto, so
Yeah. Well, normally what we did on Sundays, so there's these uh, little towns in several parts of Mexico, which are commonly known as pueblos mágicos, which is magic towns. So it's pretty common for families to go out on road trips during weekends or Sundays only. So since there are a lot of towns surrounding the city I'm from, which is Morelia, one of them we went to was Cheran, but that was a long time ago. And we then saw on the news that some horrible things were going on, that there were a lot of criminals and murder and stuff. So we stopped going towards that area specifically.
why do they call them the what do you call them? The town of witches, or magical towns? That's what you call
Oh
them.
yeah, 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 magical towns, pueblos mágicos.
So why are they called that?
Uh, well, they were commonly known that for people because the vibe in there is it's pretty great, and they're really 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 pretty old, small Spanish towns, but with that Mexican colorful detail, which is pretty good, and there's a lot of peace in there because they're very small places.
And I was kind of baiting you because Roy and I actually we were able to. The locals brought us to some sacred sites that they had, and I mean they were talking about spaceport holes and stuff like that. Like it was
Oh yeah.
they brought
Yeah,
us to the spot in the woods, and you know, they're kind of talking about it like, what, you don't have space portals back where you're from, or what? Like, you know, like
yeah. That was very interesting because that's not something you would expect someone from such a town, because most of those towns, people in there, they're extremely Catholic. But then they take us on this road trip to their mountains, and they are telling us they're sacred, and there's the spirit of this giant bull roaming around the mountains, and it's being said that you can even see it when there's like full moon or something.
on the full moon. Yeah, that's what I remember them saying too. And it was white. It's like a
Yeah,
ghost of a huge. Do you
yeah,
think that, like, when we were going up, there was a big bullhead? Do you remember that? Like, just at a corner, like somebody had put a great big bullhead there, and I couldn't help but
oh yeah,
wonder later if that's why it was there. You know?
yeah. The one of our guides, he told me that there were two like bull sculptures or statues, and the first one was the one that was created, the one that was carved like thousands of years ago, and it did look pretty old. I mean, like you saw it, and well, it was a huge monolith. And the other one was like someone from town created its own version of the bull statue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's that, to me, I found really fascinating that yes, they are Catholic. The church is, like, you know, kind of the center point of the town.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, they've never lost their connection to their ancient beliefs. And in fact, that's I mean, there is a government. There is a government there. It's not like there's no government, but it's not a centralized government. It's based basically on, well, it's based on their old system of government, which is horizontal, not hierarchical, top down. It's, you know, it's equal. And what I really liked about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understood was the community gets together and they nominate somebody, or more or less, like, you know, yeah, they nominate somebody. And if that person accepts the position, it's actually the community that takes care of that person while they fulfill their duties in that role.
Yeah, there's like some kind of consensus in there. I mean, like it's not like voting, because everyone, like all of the like representatives from families and stuff, they told me they gather, and they see like, okay, who's the one. I mean, like they consider a certain amount of factors to decide who's like the most appropriate person to be the leader, or the one who represents them. And actually, something funny. I mean, like the reason why that's going on, it's because, well, after they kicked out government, like the official government recognized by the Mexican federal government, after they kicked them out, they also gathered to reach consensus on how were they gonna organize it, themselves. And the thing we have to, like, take into consideration is that the town of Charan, well, it's still part of, like, they're still part of the Mexican status quo. And the way to summary what that is just to simply consider the fact that happened like 100 years from now. So there was a communist revolution 100 years ago, which was a Mexican revolution, and a lot of communist ideas were propagated. So a lot of people in Mexico, they have like those ideas in which it ends up with people blindly believing that the government is gonna solve their problems, and that individualism is not important. But despite those ideas indoctrinated into most of the Mexican people, they still have, personal experience that takes you to realize that everything starts with the individual. And that's what they told us in Charan. So they have like a mixture of like, freedom affiliation, like they want to focus on individual needs, like be responsible with themselves so they can have a better society, like they're scaling. But they also have this other set of collectivist ideas that were propagated in a very extremely curious and like questionable way during the Mexican Revolution. So
How were they propagated?
Well, what happened in the Mexican Revolution, it was that there was this Mexican president, Porfirio Diaz. He brought a lot of, progress to Mexico, a lot of foreign investment. He privatized a lot of, public services. And I mean, like Mexico started to have train rails all over. Everyone wanted to invest. A lot of French people came to live in Mexico because apparently the living standard back then was way better than in France. And there was a lot of money to be made over here because there are a lot of resources. My great grandfather, I'm not sure where he comes from, but he had a mine close to Mexico City, in the state of Mexico, and I mean, like, it was pretty easy to make wealth over here, but but then some communist ideas were propagated, and of course there were, like, certain problems. Ideologically speaking, here in Mexico, some discrimination and stuff, and the starters of the revolution used those weaknesses in these like aiming to be free system. They used those weaknesses to start propagating their ideas, and it was basically like, if you were working on the land, you should own the land, which really doesn't make any sense to whoever, like, knows, or it's pretty well related with the capitalist ideas. But anyway, they were propagating that, and of course the people who were working on the land would love to own the land, so they got a lot of support. But something very curious is that they got like very, very well armed. um, so I mean, like, very well armed enough to fight against the Mexican government and defeat it. Where did they got those resources from? I don't think it was the people that supported them, but I mean, like, that's something to think about and to question,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when we got to Toronto, I mean, you're met by soldiers. There's a checkpoint, big machine guns and everything. But what they were looking for was government propaganda. We got there just the night after the election. Actually, that happens every 3 years, I believe.
Yeah, every 3 years.
Yeah, and we get to this little town, and we had already been there with Luke, and because we went back and spent a week. We were so impressed with it. Where when we went with Luke and Jeff, it was just for the day, and we got a taste of it. We got to talk to the elders, and we got to really get a sense of who these people were. It doesn't take long either. Like, it's a very friendly town. Like, there's a whole other feeling there that I've never felt anywhere else, except for when I was a kid, because Canada was a lot more free back then, and doesn't feel so free anymore. But the kids are out in the streets, they're playing, families are together. Like, there was just something that's I haven't felt in quite a while myself. And then they brought immediately. We were looking for an elder to speak to or something to start organizing things, and we found ourselves right in the middle of the election party, being fed beer and.
Oh yeah. I remember that when we were looking for the one of the members of the mayor council. Yeah, because, well, there's not a leader. There's like a council, which has a representative from each neighborhood in there. But yeah, I remember that when we got there, and everyone was extremely nice to us, just a bunch of strangers, and they were giving us beverages, and they were offering food, and I think even one lady took you out to dance. I remember that.
Yeah, I didn't have much of a choice.
Yeah. She was saying that she wanted a kid with blue eyes, right?
But like, look, I don't look Mexican.
Yeah, not at all.
At all. And never once I never felt out of place ever when we were there. I never felt out of place.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the welcoming vibe in there. It was pretty nice.
It really was. It was very uncomplicated. The whole place was just very uncomplicated, and everybody's nice to nice. Like there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of stress or pressure, or there's something. But as we got to know the locals, what I realized is, because I had also seen the Vice documentaries and stuff like this, and everybody focuses on the uprising.
Right.
And that's fine, because it's very important and why it happened and the whole thing. It started in the morning with the old ladies. They started banging on that they didn't have any weapons, and everybody just joined in, and that was it. They're pulling them out of the cars. They're burning the cars down. Like, that they had it. You're out, but there's a lot of bad things that go on in the world, and people put up with it, and they put up with it. These people didn't, and they never have. Like they have a history. They have a history of not being taken over.
Yeah, yeah, they do have a history of like just always causing problems to whoever wants to impose their ways on them.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, like the Spanish, the Aztecs before the Spanish, and now the Mexican government, and they're still getting with their way, because in the very end they are the ones who have the moral high ground in this dilemma, because they're not messing with anyone. They're not doing anything, and then all of a sudden government abuses its power to allow criminals to take over town and abuse these people. Well, who the hell was going to support government in there? No one, man.
It's worth mentioning that on the way to Tehran, like, I mean, there's the towns are so close together, like literally like three
Oh yeah.
minutes from each other sometimes, or like it seemed to me anyways. But I also understood that some of the towns around there are adopting more and more of, like, they're also following the footsteps of Tehran. uh,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They all want they all want autonomy. They want to get rid of political parties, and I mean, not there's not someone promoting this in other towns, because it's of their benefit. I mean, like, everyone agrees they want that. They don't want government inside of there. They don't want political parties. They just want to do things their ways, and the way they know it's their ancestral ways. And the reason the people in Tehran is organized like that, it's because there was a consensus and they decided they wanted to try that. Nobody like forced that, coercitively forced that to happen. So that's the reason it hasn't had any problem or any issue in 7 years, and the results are amazing. So I guess that's one of the reasons all of the surrounding towns want to do the same thing, because it's working.
yeah, but I mean, you and I went for a drive, and kind of got into a little town that didn't have that same feeling whatsoever. Do you remember?
Right. Yeah, yeah, I remember that when well, yeah, just went out to took some shots of the nature and stuff. Yeah, but something I noticed there, it was filled with military. There was a checkpoint, military checkpoint, right? Or I
Well,
don't know if it was
there was a
federal
guy with
police.
a holster, like just with a 6 shooter or something. Like when we got to town, remember? It just didn't feel like trying whatsoever. Like it was out of a movie kind of thing there. Like, people kind of looking out the side of their doors, or like it just felt. I didn't feel safe. Uh, and then we left, and we had military in front of us at one point. And they're
Oh
all,
yeah,
all
yeah,
the faces are covered with the machine guns, and you don't know. Like, I mean, I just couldn't wait to get back. In fact, remember when we hit the turnout, that you even said they won't follow us up here because we're going
yeah,
through the
yeah. They try to avoid those areas, and I mean, like, government's not allowed in China, not at all. They cost a lot of fucked up stuff, and everyone knows that. Everyone in the surrounding town knows that. I mean, like, even the ones who are from government, and they were since back then, they know what's the guilt they have. I mean, like, they don't have the moral high ground. So if, for example, I don't know, a military truck, or like federal police truck as well wants to get inside of town, they're just not gonna make it.
Yeah, and I mean, it still looms. I couldn't help but like when I was talking to the people, I'm thinking of Trinidad, really, and
Yeah,
you know, you see such a kind face what they've been through.
yeah, like the the pain they went through,
Yeah,
and yeah, I mean, like a lot of things happened to them, some horrible things, since
yeah,
like the local governments were not doing anything against all the criminal activity that was going on. The criminals were abusing people heavily. I mean, Trinidad got his brother kidnapped, and he lost some of his friends trying to defend the forests. And I mean, it should have been hard, man. Imagine losing someone of your a member of your family, or like someone trying to fuck up your home. I mean,
and I saw it with the Rangers. I mean, to put this a little bit in context, like when once they got to know us very quickly too, because they invited us to basically a council meeting to explain to us their entire plan for the future. And you mentioned the individual. I mean, that was such a thing for me. I mean, it really starts there. Like, and they had even a diagram. You see, like it starts with the individual, and then it goes to the family, and then to the community, and it spirals outward.
yeah, it's a spiral that develops itself, and probably if you um, kind of like put that on a graph, on that pattern of spiral, it could be like this. What was the name of this sacred pattern? That the name of an Italian scientist.
Which one?
The pattern, which is kind of like a spiral as well, but it grows exponentially.
Like yeah, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Um, Fractal
Mm,
or whatever. There, you mean the one where they go into the one piece of you go out from the one part and it keeps repeating itself almost there, like.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but another thing is, I mean, once we got to know them, Jacob Scholar, is that how I say Jacob's last name? Scholar, isn't it?
Shula.
Jacob was there to introduce the idea of cryptocurrency because they wanted to unbank themselves. So
Okay.
Frios had in mind, like that's the reason probably we went back, because they wanted to introduce more specifically Dash because of its privacy levels and everything else, and you know, give them a way out of the fiat currency system that we're in, and give them a way to be their own bank. And really, I mean, on the individual, everybody is their own bank in that system, you know. And but as we got to know them, we had a dinner for them, or Jacob did, and they invited us the next day for breakfast. That's all I understood. What I didn't know was breakfast included armed rangers bringing us up to their sacred site in the mountains with the elders. Like the rangers are there to protect us. These were young men, and the seriousness that they had really let me know, like, well, how serious it was. And they were with us because the places we went have been ambushed in the past. They're there to protect us. But you could see that on their faces, and these guys like were, you know, young men, but they had seen this, whether they were in their teens or whatever. When it happened, they saw it. You can tell they saw it. uh,
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I remember the face on the soldier we interviewed in the very end of that trip, and yeah, they're like this all the time. And well, I mean, like you said, they went through that. There was an ambush up there on the hills, right? That's what they told us it was.
what was it?
There was an ambush like up
Yeah,
on the hills. Yeah, they
I think
told us.
it's where we were. Like they brought us to the very top of the mountain where there's this big piece of the, how would you even describe it? It looks like a massive rock, but it's part of the mountain, and it's sacred to them. And whenever it doesn't rain at the I think it was May 15th. They expect that every year, and it's generally right on like clockwork. And if it doesn't come, they go up to the mountain and they pray to the rock.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience to go out there. I mean, like they took us to their sacred place, which Damn, it was a very humbling experience. I remember.
All that area is volcanic, right?
Yeah,
So it's the fertility of that land. Like, I mean, the energy from it, because it's all grazed, because we get there and there's like cows running around, these tiny little trees, and it was just beautiful. Like, it was like beautiful. Like, this is what it's all about. And once you understand how connected these people were to nature, or at least start getting a sense of it, like the logging was unacceptable to them.
yeah, they're very connected to nature and very connected to their home. I mean, like, and going back to their native, way of living. They, their ceremonies are, well, of course, not Catholic or like Christianly traditional at all, but they're very intimate, like intimately related with nature. The way they explained the city was going on, because they were dancing around their monument, which was kind of like a natural monument, and trees and stuff and all that in that secret area. So I guess that's the reason they got so pissed. That, like you said, it was unacceptable for them to just witness that logging and do nothing.
And also, they still held on to their ancient language too, or at least some of them did, because I have it at my interviews. Remember the old
Oh yeah, Purepecha.
Purepecha language,
Yeah.
which is going to be very hard to get translated. So if anybody's listening from Toronto, I may need your help.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And for anybody interested, the promo for the film is already out. It'll be in the description down below. And it was really an amazing experience. For so many reasons, it kind of woke up a part of my brain that may have gone to sleep. It happens to me a little more every time I even just go to Mexico. There's just freedom still exists in the heart of people there. Can you add to that? Because that's what I saw in Acapulco. I mean, I've been to all over the West Coast talking to people, and that's what I get. Like, none of them like the government. None of them see it as anything but a burden. I don't hear. I just see a country full of anarchists that are stuck with something they don't want.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, this is a devaluated country that has been through several conflicts, which led to, well, like the peso is worth what it is worth right now. All of the foreigners come here, and everything is extremely cheap to them. So that kind of like puts the country in not a privileged position. So you gotta, like, find out ways on yourself to like, just get what you need to get, or do what you need to do. And but there's always this burden in which everyone agrees, which is government, which is bureaucracy, and all of the things that kind of like prevent you from succeeding in your goals, and it's a lot of people here are not like, part of the culture over here is not has not a big, how can I say, has not bigly affected by media. I think it was greatly affected by experience, because there was a lot of people who needed to do a lot of stuff to get what they wanted. So kind of like that was like inherited, and people knows it's better to solve your own problems by yourself rather than letting government, help you.
And you see the entrepreneurial spirit like everywhere else. You don't see that so much in Canada, because I mean, you can't do anything without some kind of permit or a license or whatever. So you can't just go out and make a little money without interference of some sort. Um, and I'm an independent filmmaker. I mean, and I see, I have to do all that. I have a company and da, 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 da. But what I see in Mexico is different. Yeah, you go to Acapulco and yeah, there's military guys walking around with machine guns, and but it doesn't, it's not as imposing. It somehow balances out. It's like, I don't
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean, like,
know how to explain it. Like,
yeah, you can notice the guys who are in the police or in the military, they're not hardcore patriots who want to serve their country. No, they're just people who are on the need for 10, 15,000 pesos a month. So they're willing to go through that shit to just provide to them and their families. And like when there's confrontations between cartels, nobody in the police get involved because they know, I mean, like they just in there because they're getting paid, which I believe might be a different case in the US or in Canada to whoever's a police officer or who's part of the military, especially in the United States.
Well, recently, even in Acapulco, wasn't there like I saw it on the news there, like it was just after I left, and they had somehow disbanded the entire police force because of the massive amount of corruption that was in there. Like,
oh yeah. Everyone in the police force in Acapulco had ties with criminal organizations and stuff. But I mean, like everyone knew that, and nobody cared until I don't know, there was a change. Government changed over here in December, so probably it was because of that.
right, of course. But I mean, it does. There's a certain different mentality. I mean, Jacob, he's from Denmark. Denmark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently those people are known for have some of the best race car drivers in the world. And I got to find out that this guy likes, man, 160 or 140 all the way home, white knuckling it. But no worry of being pulled over by the police because you just get the 500 pesos and you're on your way. Right?
Oh, yeah.
That was his mentality. I'm not sure where it worked out that way. But.
Yeah, and it's basically, I mean, like the cops, they don't really care about your safety over here, and they even tell you that when they stop you. But what they care about is what's inside of your wallet, and that's it. And actually, it's not expensive to get out of a problem with authority. I mean, like even if you're like kind enough, or like how can I say it? If you like them enough, they can even let you go for free, because.
Right, and I mean, I remember I was in Acapulco after the conference. I stayed another week, and I had this cab driver that I liked there that was just outside. He was always outside, you could go anywhere you wanted, and he took me for a tour for relatively cheap. And I remember I was taking a walk one night. Well, at night, like 6 or whatever, still a bit of daylight there. And suddenly I hear, "Hey, gringo!" He's all happy to see me. Now, here's the thing. I got to tell a little backstory. He had taken me around. I had bought some souvenirs for my son, and I had left them in the cab. So my white, well, I shouldn't even say that, but just, like the mentality of my country right away, I'm like, oh, shit, those are gone, like I'm not putting those back. So I'm walking, and then I hear, "Hey," and I walk over, and I was like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" He had, not only did he keep all of the stuff, but he had individually wrapped them all in newspaper so that they wouldn't get hurt, and was waiting to see me again to give them back, buys me a beer, and there's like 5 or 6 of them there, just just hanging out, and there's this one guy, he was like 60 some years old. He just fit, and you'd never know it. He'd been in the military, he was a cliff diver, all this stuff. But they told me, don't ever talk to the police under any, like, they're not your friend here. Like, that's not, don't let them see you drinking a beer. Don't ever give them an excuse or so, like, just the police, like, stay away from them. Like, it was a warning almost, like, and we were all being friendly, but it was like, hey, because I was walking home with a beer, like, I guess.
Yeah, it's because the police is kind of like another gang. I mean, yeah, it is.
That's the sense I got. Another thing I found interesting in Sharon is the men and the women seem very equal. There doesn't seem to be any kind of patriarchy or matriarchy or whatever. Like, it just seems there seems to be a very nice balance, like, that should be everywhere, obviously.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance. I mean, like, the thing is, most of the women, they want to dedicate themselves to their family or to like their home and stuff, and they actually told me that like in one of the meetings, I believe when Jacob made the dinner for them, they told us mostly everyone in the industry or whatever that involved production in Tehran, most of the people involved in there were men. And I told them, okay, cool. Why is that? Because women are not interested. They don't want to do that. They don't. They don't care. So I was like, good. I mean, like they told me there were some women who were interested, and they were pretty cool with that. They didn't care.
Mm, mm. Nice place, Toronto. It's an example. It's really like an example for the world because I mean, most of us have been indoctrinated to the point where you can't even imagine life without government. That's the reality for most people. Even me, growing up in Canada, now of course, like my mind is changing, but I didn't realize just how indoctrinated I actually was until you have to kind of step back and remember and go, oh, geez, like this is
Right.
working. This is all a voluntary based government, like the police and all these things. And it really it helped remind me of what liberty is actually supposed to be all about. And it's better if the community takes care of the community than some, like Luke said it best there in the one interview I did with them. It's better the community takes care of the community than having some guy sitting on top, some bureaucrat making decisions for, that he's not a part of, and they're not a part of, and they don't have the same agenda. It was very enlightening for me being there, and just Mexico in general. Mexico in general, but especially because we have the example of a town without government that works fine. In fact, better than fine.
Yeah, this country it is special, man. I mean, like it has. You can find the same vibe everywhere, but in a different way. But it's still like the same vibe, you know. I mean, like you go to the desert, which is in the north, close to the border and stuff. And in those little towns in the desert or in the mountains, I mean, like you can find like the similar vibe to the one we had in Tehran. You go to the ones in the west, or kind of like in this area called El Bajío, which is kind of like in central Mexico. Same vibe, but in a different way, different weather. You go to the south, to the jungle, and it's the same vibe. I mean, and that vibe is just people wanting to do their own stuff, and that's
Yeah,
it. They don't want to force anyone into it, and they don't want to be forced by anyone.
yeah. I felt the same thing in Iquitos too. I was in Iquitos, Peru. I was making a film on ayahuasca. Not just ayahuasca, actually, a whole bunch of them: Campbell, ayahuasca, Yopo. It's called Trippin' with Lee. It's actually on the Trailer Park Boys channel, called SwearNet. So anybody can go watch that. And it's pretty. You'll get to see my assistant cameraman freak out in the woods and yell at this guy. And that was good. But the same thing, like I don't know, like I mean, but I was also going down the end. I was literally with people who don't have that as part of their lives. It just isn't part of their life. The government just doesn't reach out that far into the jungle. You see what I'm saying? Like it was.
Right.
Uh, and there seems to be all the Aboriginal Americans, like even here and everything. I find that as a common spark with all of you. The memory and being able to really put things in perspective sometimes when things are getting out of hand, and you're so programmed by your TV, and they'll come in the way, because I know quite a few Native people and stuff. They just the way the common sense way that you're supposed to be looking at this. You know what I mean? Like, this is wrong, and you shouldn't be destroying this. And I don't know if
Yeah.
what I'm saying makes sense, but there's definitely um, a part of the heart that just hasn't gone away, a part of the memory that hasn't gone away, maybe a lot less than the rest of the people in North America, who have been brought up in this. I don't know, like
But like,
we've lost our connection for the most part. most North Americans, in my opinion. That's just what I'm saying.
But wouldn't that be kind of like a recent thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, with all the TV. I mean, like when did it all start? Like it was, I mean, people started watching TV like in the 50s, right? Like programs and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was a kid, we still, there was nothing to be riding around in the back of the, your uncle's truck there in the bed. There's just so many things that are just you can't do anymore. And for me, it all kind of started with the seatbelt law, because I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but it was the one little thing that now everybody had to do it. And then there was another little thing everybody had to do, another little thing. And next thing you knew, man, it's just like you're just living in a world of policies, and it's
Policies, regulations, permits, all that kind of shit, right?
yeah. So I mean, that's just me. I mean, Canada's a beautiful place as far as the landscape, and people are generally nice, and especially where I live in the East Coast, we're known for our hospitality and being generally kind people. It's a great place. It's a great place as far as that, but we're really feeling the heavy hand of the globalists here at the moment. As many people are all around the world, and that's why these yellow vest protests and stuff are going on. People are fed up, and are re-questioning or are questioning the role. What role should government have in our lives, if any? And I'm seeing that happen, and I'm
None at
glad that
all.
we went to Toronto and we can actually show an example to the world that says this is what happens. I mean, it's not on a macro scale, but this is where it starts.
It is where it starts. Yeah, yeah, complicated subject in there. But I mean, like for example, right now, I cannot conceive a scenario in which Mexico has a yellow vest protest. Probably with what's going on with the uh, shortage of gasoline, but not something like in France, which is like a lot of people from different ideologies, different social circles and stuff, and they're all involved in this.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I'm going to wrap it up in here, but Roy, you're going to be at the at Anarchapocalypse this year. I understand.
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna go with Tata Meche from Charan, which is the elder we met the first time we went there, and he's gonna have a talk on February 17th, I guess. Yes, and well, I'm gonna be the translator of all the things he say.
For those of you who don't know what Anarchapoco is, this is a big anarchist conference put on by that was started by Jeff Berwick and has just grown exponentially. I went last year; it was amazing. All people I had been following for years, I got to meet and interview G. Edward Griffin, Max Egan, Cynthia McKinney. It was an amazing experience, and really, I saw it as like just a garden of ideas. Like it that need to be had. Like these are the greatest thinkers of our time, in my opinion, and are warning us about what's to come if we don't if we leave it to a control system rather than individually taking responsibility for ourselves and using the technologies that are coming out for our benefit, where instead of enslavement, which it could easily go. We were seeing social credit systems and stuff happening in China where you're restricted what you can buy, where you can travel based on your political views. As far as I understand, this could easily happen if we're not careful.
Right. I think that's the solution. I mean, like you can see it every time which people don't take personal responsibility and they just hand their lives to someone else. That's when tyranny happens. That's when authoritarianism develops in societies. So I think that's the solution to all this shit that's going on. Just people to start taking personal responsibility. I think the outcome of that's going to be absolute freedom, because nobody is going to support a policy which increases authority of a certain group of people, because they're going to be, well, I mean, like they're gonna know they're not gonna need that, because they are solving their own issues themselves. They're not causing trouble to anyone else. So I guess that's the medicine, man. Like everyone just doing what they need to do.
And the tools are coming out. I mean, one that's very exciting to me is cryptocurrency. And if you'd like to donate cryptocurrency, every bit of that will go into my film, because at this point it's just about getting some money and getting this done, because I have to put my energy elsewhere in order, I am a father, I have a son, I need to make ends meet. But the more money I get donated, the less I have to go get work independently, and I get to focus on this film. And this will be out very shortly if I can get the funds. Roy did an amazing job. Really glad to have met you. We've become pretty good friends. I plan on doing future projects with Roy on other subjects that we have a similar interest in. And if you'd like to see the promo for Anarchapocalypse, it's down in the description. And please support the film, and let's get the truth out to the world about. Let's remember what it's like to be free, people. Let's remember what it's supposed to be about.
Not having to ask for permission to sell fucking lemonade.
Yeah. Does one person ever have the right to rule over another without consent? That's what it really boils down to for me. And if you like what you saw here, this is the first show. Thanks, Roy, for being my first guest.
My pleasure.
So hit the subscribe button and the bell notification. I plan on doing a lot of these. This is a good, quick way to have important discussions about the state of the world and the future of humanity, really, and who we are in relation to each other.